Coelho. I studied here, but now I'm currently a teacher designing multimedia degree in Coimbra, University of Coimbra. And this is like a really short sample of my PhD thesis. It was concluded in 2013, but I was studying some images that I didn't know who was the author behind it. Only right just before I delivered the thesis, I could find the traces, because for 3 years I was after some clues to try to find this person, and just 3 months before I submitted my PhD thesis, I finally found it. So this is it's almost unknown because it was totally unknown even for me that I was after him, and then I finally got to know him, not in personal, but in personal because he's already died many years ago, 10 years ago. But I found some of his descendants. So Erasto. Just like what I'm going, the presentation is divided in 3 phases. The first one I'm going to focus on his biography, and then second, analysis of his images that he produced since 1940 until the 90s, and then some attempts of reactivation of those images, and I'm going to show 2 projects I developed out of his imagery in the contemporary times. One not with letterpress, but the second, both with letterpress, but one was done in the end with offset, and I explain why. So Erasto Portela was born in 1930 here in Porto. He started to work as a graphic designer at age 10 here in Lithografia Patria, which is now closed, which is not far from here. And then age 24 he moved to Braga, where he was working in another letterpress workshop. He was here in Porto when age 10 when he started to design labels for many brands, including Confiança. That's the soap label I'm going to focus this presentation, but other brands as well. So, and then after in Braga, he started to work in Lithografia Minho. That one of the major clients were Confiança, this factory. But one thing that I was curious, in 1940, this factory set up an in-house letterpress workshop. That was where I developed the project. In 1966, he moved to Guimarães, which is like a town not far from Braga, where he worked in another letterpress workshop. And then in the 90s, he got retired and he moved back to Porto. But he never stopped working until almost when he died. So when I finally found one of his daughters that he also studied fine arts here in this school, and I was pleased to know that she kept, because she studied fine arts, so she kept some of his father's work, but it's all in boxes, so it's not analyzed or it's just kept. So one thing that's so I'm just going to show a few samples of his work. Just before the internet, one of the things that he got inspiration from was from taking pictures of clipping from magazines. So he kept like in folders, like there was a label on top of each book, which like hands, birds, fish, trees. So that's where he kept his images that he could design from. One of his main influences was cinema. He lived next door with the Cinema do Terço that doesn't exist anymore. It's a cinema that was demolished, that he would compulsively go to the cinema to get inspiration from. From her daughter, he didn't travel much, only Netherlands and Spain. I don't know how these trips were very important for his work. So this is some images that I'm showing. So these are original drawings. And then he would change the designs to adapt it to plain colors to be able to print with letterpress. So these are some random images from his original drawings by hand, and this is the letterpress in Confiança in its original premises. The factory moved into another premises, and they took the machines. But I just found out, like a couple months ago, the factory was sold back again, and this letterpress was completely dismantled, unfortunately. They have, so these machines were bought in 1940, 2 Heidelbergs, 1 cylinder, also an Heidelberg, 61 different types. They have a catalog from the 50s, and the catalog of the typefaces doesn't have any names, but they have, they chose brand names of their own products to name the typefaces. I found out where Confiança bought this from foundries in Netherlands, in Spain. I don't know if there was a relation with the trips that this man did. It's a speculation, pure speculation. So these are some images designed by Erasto. It chose his middle name as an artistic name. So I had access to over almost 1,000 different images from this factory until 40, because he started to work for this factory in 1940. So until 1940, there's around 200, but after, like, the vast majority of the images I collected are from Erasto. So I categorize the images into different topics. So the most prevalent is people, so women, men, and children. The second topic, most common topic, was things related with flowers, nature, and landscape. The third topic was international references. So literally, there's every single country in the world almost is the topic of a soap. So this is Everest. I think they were launching brands every minute. So I think this soap was created when the first man reached the top of Everest. So there was lots of celebrating soaps. One related to Iran, India. Geoethnographic images, like concerning the Portuguese context. So Nazaré is a fisherman village, or Ceifeira. So virtually you can draw up a map of Portugal, because they're virtually like references from every single country, every single region. Algarve. Or Ribatejo, another region. So all these soap labels are letterpress printed. I have them all. Aveiro, another reference to Aveiro. San Miguel, an island in the Azores. So this stick was like a soap for shaving. Or this one related to Porto. Another reference is historical figures or symbols. For example, Triato is like a fighter before the Romans got to the Iberian Peninsula. Montes Claros, the name of a famous battle. Or Cavaleiros, which is, those men. Architecture, so Porto. I don't need to explain this bridge. Are you familiar? Alvalade, it looks like New York. I think my theory is that this was when they opened what in Lisbon is called the new avenues, when they made like a more cosmopolitan layout of Lisbon. And Jamor, which is a stadium, but there's also airports, bridges, whatever. Anything. So birds, animals. I mean, a bird, Melville, or African, which is like very exotic, or gaticão. This works in Portuguese, which is cat and dog, but just as if it was just a single word. Or colonial references. This one, mambo, is a type of music. Some of this was to be exported to former colonies. actually, this is like what I'm doing in my current research. I'm looking into these what I call racist representations of foreigner people, or in this one, because my interest in this kind of images, and that was why I was drawn into this conference, is the historical perspective. That was one of the tracks. Music, real, or academico. Actually, this is the typical suit of the university where I'm teaching now. Or melody. But there's also sports, there's also religions, and so on. So, starting in 2004, there's this shop, A Vida Portuguesa, that started to reenact these images of former Portuguese products. So these images are being back to life. So I was commissioned by Vida Portuguesa to bring back to life 15 of these images, but because it's a commercial product, they did it on offset. But what I did was a facsimile, an adaptation of some of these images, and these were the 15 chosen one. So this one you can buy today. But what I did was went back to letterpress as a research. Part of my thesis was because they still have the zinc plates of all of the soap labels. So what I did was unpack some of these and try to, with letterpress, just use exactly these plates. So for example, this is some of the 6 color label that you can see on the right side. The designer used to call these on the left side the Nankin in Portuguese. Nankin is a Chinese town, and before then they used to call the Nankin the name of the ink that we in Portugal we call tinta da China, which in English is the Indian ink. So they called Nankin after the town in China because of the China ink, because we say China ink, not Indian ink. So there was another designer that tried to test it the same thing with this same label, Erasto Portela, but he reenacted with a digital process. I tried to reenact with a letterpress, and I did it. This is the current letterpress in the new premises, so the type. And what I did, the second project, was use the images of this designer and the type that are available in the premise, but doing something contemporary. So I'm a contemporary graphic design. I wanted to do something contemporary, but without the computer, but just using what was already available, not introducing anything new. So I'm not going to explain this project because I've been published the results of this in a scientific conference, and I can lead you to there if you're curious to know. So what I did was, with the only typographer worker that was working there, was choosing the images that was still available and try to do, I don't need to explain because it's a letterpress workshop, so I don't need to explain every single phase of this. So you know, are you familiar? So, and this was the end result. So this was proposed to the company to be launched because they were celebrating 120 years, that's the name of the soap, 120, but because it was letterpress, they didn't want it. There's something that the mass market doesn't want. That is not welcome, like these very niche or labels with different differences within. So they completely reject it. So Erasto Portela died almost 20 years ago, and this is my homage to him. Thank you.